Welcome. In this session, we're going to look at the nations during the millennium. And the first 3 points that I put on the last video of an introduction of 12 different characteristics of the nations during the millennial period, which would, in a court of law, solidly prove that none of them are born-again believers at any stage or level. And so now we're going to go through the scripture verses on the first 3 points because of the size of the time and all of that. I want to keep these relatively short, partly because it takes so long to load them up on PowerPoint applications. So number one question was, or point was, that the nations remain unregenerated humans, including their capacity for procreating, because this is an issue that we have to resolve in Scripture if we're going to address the Isaiah 65 issue. So they remain unregenerated, as in not born again, humans, including their capacity for procreating. Now, a couple of passages of Scripture on this part. Our first one is in Luke chapter 20, beginning at verse 34. And I'll read it along with you there on the screen. And Jesus answered and said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage." Then Luke 20:35, "But those who are counted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage." And then verse 36 is really the kicker. "Nor can they die any more, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection." So here, this verse clearly states that those who are the sons of God, the born-again believers, God's sons, will not die again when they're resurrected and glorified. They will not ever die again. So that verse alone, just as a standalone verse in verse 36, certainly would be enough to close the court case for sure, because it's impossible for them to die. The nations in Revelation, we see in Isaiah, we see they're dying, so they can't be the same people. And then the second verse is Matthew 22:28. "Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be?" This was the question that the men asked. "For they all had her as a wife." Then Jesus answers and says, "You are mistaken, not knowing the Scriptures, nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are all like the angels in heaven." And the majority portion of this verse coincides directly with one in Luke, but in Luke the Lord adds this extended, "Nor can they die anymore." So those are two or three passages of Scripture which absolutely confirm that the nations that go into the millennial kingdom as sheep simply and clearly are not born-again believers of any kind at all, because you have to have people being able to die. They cannot die. God himself declares that. Then the second and the third question kind of tie together in the Scripture, and that's found in Isaiah 65:20. And it reads like this: "No more shall an infant from there live but a few days, nor an old man who has not fulfilled his days, for the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed." Isaiah 65:23, "They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth children for trouble, for they shall be the descendants," oh, this is powerful, "for they shall be the descendants of the blessed of the Lord." and their offspring with them. They shall be blessed, the descendants of the Lord, and their offspring with them. Now, here's the tie together verse from the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 25, verse 34, it says this: Then the king will say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. In Isaiah 65:23, it says, I'll go back there just for a second. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth children for trouble, for they shall be the descendants of the blessed of the Lord, the people that came, the fruit, all the people who were the blessed of the Lord as the sheep going into the millennial kingdom. Now he's talking about their descendants of the blessed of the Lord and their offspring with them. So I think that I believe if this was in a courtroom and I'm sort of having this retrial kind of idea as well, I believe that the judge would say, case dismissed. You have no case, folks. Clearly, the nations going in as sheep to the millennial kingdom are unregenerated but restored human beings based on the principle of the restoration of all things during the millennial period, which is addressed in Acts 3:21. So if the Lord could allow us to have our mind changed, oh dear saints, your impression of God and his purpose and his wide open plan could capture your hearts for his kingdom, so that we would lay aside, that Paul wrote to Timothy, he said, he that wars entangles himself not in the affairs of this life, that he may please him who's called him to be a soldier. But we have to have a vision, something like what the Lord said, who for the joy set before him endured the cross and despised the shame and is now seated at the right hand of God. But we don't have a vision. We have not been presented a vision in Christian teaching. It's just escaping from hell and going to heaven forever, which the Bible doesn't specifically promote that as the end result at all. So anyway, keep this short. The nations during the millennium will remain unregenerated humans, including the capacity to reprocreate. God bless you.